Alright everyone, it's time for Vermont Issues, episode 90. The state is so desperate for more substance abuse counseling that it's actually backing off some of the red tape required to become a counselor. Like, they're waiving some of the requirements. Now, what do we know about states like Vermont? It's kind of a nanny state. Not on the gun issue so much, but it's kind of like Maryland or something like that in every other aspect. Sometimes even more legalistic, like we put California to shame so that they look like a pro-business state. So it's very odd for the government of the state of Vermont to recognize that a problem is so substantial that you actually have to back off some of the regulatory structure around it. Vermont is extremely legalistic when it comes to counseling, health services, anything related to mental health and so forth, which means that it's effective. We've got a good, generally, system in place, but it's also burdensome. It's more expensive, it's more time consuming, it's less efficient than it could be. And always the worry is that somebody who's very intelligent and might do well being a counselor or being anything else related to psychotherapy or anything like that will shy away from the profession, at least within the state, and either go elsewhere to practice it after studying here, where we have a top-notch education system at all levels. Or they'll stay here, but they'll go after something else, something that'll be a little bit easier to actually get into. It's actually strange. I'm surprised that Phil Scott would do this because he's been seeming more and more and more like a big-time legalist. So I'm not exactly sure where he got this idea from. I guess at some point somebody told him, look, the opiate crisis here is getting so bad, we don't really have another choice. Yes, we know. We love red tape, we love bureaucratic nightmare, dystopian bullshit. We like living like we're in the movie Brazil from the 1980s, the one where everything's overly complicated and inefficient. But something has to be done because order will break down, everyone will end up addicted. Could happen too. The thing is, Vermont's not even the worst hit. You look at a state like West Virginia, it's even more terrible. I think West Virginia is #1 and Ohio, if I remember correctly, is #2. And then I think we're in the top 10, I believe. But even then, like Rutland itself, if you look at a county map of substance abuse, Rutland, I think, is #1. Not even just per capita. I think it eclipses the Burlington region because we've been hit so hard. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that I did see that that was actually the case. This community is overrun with opiates. It's nice that they're going to do something about it. But that's just, again, it's like before when they're saying, oh, well, we hired a few more people, we threw some money into more programs, we got a couple more treatment facilities open. Okay, that's step 1. This is step 2. Now you have more substance abuse counselors. That's just the first 2 baby steps you need to take. Now you need to take a great leap. And the way you do that is you say, okay, the federal government can do whatever it wants regarding the drug war. The state of Vermont's no longer going to wage it. Instead of throwing we don't even care what happens. If you're from within the state of Vermont, being in the state of Vermont, and you don't have a shit ton of drugs, we're not even going to enforce anything. You just come, if you want to get clean, you can come and we take the drugs. We're not even going to fine you. We're just going to put you in rehab. They're going to make the process easier for you. Some of these people need like job training. Some of these people didn't finish their education. But here's the thing. With the opiate epidemic, it becomes worse because in past drug epidemics, it disproportionately affected those that were disaffected to begin with. Like somebody was homeless, they'd start smoking crack or something. Somebody was at risk sexually, somebody was at risk for some other reason, they get into heroin, they get into meth. The opiate epidemic doesn't do this. The opiate epidemic hit every rung of society. Arguably the hardest was the middle class, the suburban sort of housewives and stuff that started pill popping, but were never told by anybody that that was a form of drug abuse. Anyway, they were told, hey, you had surgery, here's a bottle of pills, and then they realized that their mundane, bored existence felt a lot better once they were taking those little pills, and then they kept seeking them out. Some of those people now, they like snort heroin or something now too. So they became totally addicted because there was no defense mechanism in place. There was no real effort to prevent it from happening. It was silent in form. It wasn't like crack. You know, even when I was a little kid, early 90s, crack is still being talked about a lot. It wasn't like ecstasy maybe in the 90s when it enters the scene in a larger way as a party drug. It wasn't like the slightly non-existent inhalant epidemic or scarfing, and so Jenkem, some of these either hoaxes or totally overblown and exaggerated situations. Now, it's a very real problem. It's not overblown. They probably don't exaggerate it enough. There are probably a lot of people that are addicted, and they just don't account for them. It's still partially silent. The treatment apparatus in some places is still not there. I'd wager a bet that in no state are there fewer people than anticipated or estimated actually addicted to these substances. Probably twice as many. Some people have told me, "Oh, don't worry, it's only a small percentage of the population." Yeah, but 1% of the U.S. population is still millions of people. I believe, isn't it 2-point-something% of the population estimated to be addicted to painkillers? And that's just pharmaceuticals. That doesn't count heroin users. It doesn't count people who are addicted to some other similar substance. Now, you're probably pushing 10 million people in the country. It's a lot of people that are addicted. In some places, that per capita rate is significantly higher. Like in Vermont, especially, I think West Virginia, they're pushing 4% of the population just on painkillers. That doesn't even take into consideration all the meth heads, crack heads, and things like that. People who smoke way too much pot, people who are total drunks. Drunkenness is still a public health problem. And we're sitting here in the state of Vermont. This is the funny part. And this was in the video I made yesterday. They're sitting there talking about how the Vermont physicians don't think marijuana should be legalized at this time. It might become a public health crisis. The public health crisis is staring you right in the face. There are people smoking weed out there. Nobody ever worries, "Oh, well, a lot of Vermonters are smoking weed. They're doing terrible things and ruining their lives because they're smoking the devil's weed." No. But there are people that drink too much and ruin their lives. They go get a DUI or something. They smash their car into somebody else's car, kill somebody's fucking kid. There are plenty of people popping pills. There are plenty of people shooting heroin. There are plenty of people smoking meth. There are plenty of people snorting coke all day. Not that many people getting fucked up by marijuana. We've got our priorities so far out of whack in this state and every other state too. States need to take initiative and do what they've done with marijuana in some cases. The federal government still classes it as, it is top schedule, it's highly addictive, very, very harmful to your health, no medical benefit. We will throw you in jail at the federal level if you smoke marijuana. The federal government acts like that. Why don't the states just do what they have done with that bullshit? Which is that they've begun ignoring it. They've decriminalized or legalized, or some of them have medical marijuana. Hemp is classed the same way for no reason. Some of them have legalized hemp production. Even on an industrial level, the federal government backed off because too many states did it for them to enforce it properly. States aren't willing to cooperate at all. And they don't want to get into a states' rights issue in the courts because the federal government fucking knows that it'll lose. So they're just watching their drug war drip away. Why don't states begin ignoring the federal government's drug policies on all the other substances? Take matters into your own hands. And if the states are unwilling to do that at the legislative level, then people should use ballot initiatives to do the same thing. It's not like you can't. Of course you can. Once you start that ball rolling, the drug war will die off a lot faster than you think, but it requires some ballot initiatives or some forward-thinking legislatures out there. There aren't many forward-thinking legislatures in the country, and to tell the truth, it's just not a thing. Legislative bodies tend to be extremely strangulated and staffed by people who are woefully outdated. They're like from the old guard left, like total neoliberals, don't care about any social progress, or they're neocons, and you know, all they care about is, oh, we reduced one fee by 0.5%. What fiscal conservatives we are. That's really who runs a lot of these state legislatures too. It's not just DC. It's astonishing to me that people don't even realize how woefully inadequate our legislative bodies in this country really are. Nowhere worse than here in Vermont, where we've got a Democratic supermajority. They won't even go after Phil Scott's bullshit veto of marijuana legalization. It's about the most no-brainer issue that we could possibly be debating right now, and they still won't do anything. They're not even pressing the issue. You barely hear about it now. You won't hear about it again until people bring it up during the next election. It's so dumb. That's about all. Peace out.